Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Director at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about the best recording of William Walton's First Symphony. Yes, at last, Walton won one of the greatest British symphonies ever dreamt of. It's an amazing, amazing work, at least for its first three movements. Remember, there is some sort of some people think that the finale isn't quite up to the rest of it, kind of like Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. It begins with, sort of terror and doom and gloom, and then the finale is happy, and is that happiness sincere? Do you care? I don't care. It's brilliant. It's thrilling. It's exciting. I think part of the problem with the finale is it's just not played with enough guts and conviction, especially after the first movement, which is possibly the greatest single movement that Walton ever wrote, or just about anybody else at that time. I mean, it's an amazing, incredibly organic, cohesive piece of music. It's astonishing. It really is. The other problem with the Walton First is that, and this is a real issue, when Walton wrote it, it was really beyond the capacity of anyone to play. I'm not English orchestras, European orchestras. It was between the wars. Orchestras were not in their best shape. Even when Walton recorded it in the 50s with the Philharmonia, there it is, Walton doing Walton. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't bring the necessary ferocity to it. I'll show you what I mean. I really will. I want you to see this, because here we have our score in the critical edition, for what that's worth. And I'm just going to go to the very end of the first movement and show you one tiny little detail in the timpani part, because, I'm a percussionist, so these things interest me. All right, so here we are. We're at the end. What did I just do? I think I just whacked the computer, so excuse me, folks. There. That's better. I'm not starting over. We're rolling here. We're rolling. So here we have the closing page. Whoa. Now, if you look at the timpani part, which is, let's see, where is it? Right here. See where my finger is there? See, it's triple forte, and then on the next page here, the timpanist is supposed to switch. It says col legno. That means switch to wooden sticks, triple forte, and then you switch back to regular sponge-headed sticks for the last roll at the very, very end. But, the timpani's going ba, ba-da-da, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum, and then it's this triple forte solo, bum, 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 and then, the orchestra's going yum, ba-dum, 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 bum, bum, ba-dum, 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 bum, bum. No one ever gets that hard enough. They do. We'll talk about the people who do it. It's got to be pulverizing, extraordinary. It's got to be insane, and you just hear performance after performance, which they just don't hit it hard enough. It's that simple. And unless you get that kind of ferocity, not just in the last few bars of the timpani, that's the icing on the cake. For the entire first movement, it's very, very heavily influenced by Sibelius. The piece is all based on pedal points. In other words, string ostinatos based on, the same notes that just sustain each other while the tension builds on top of them. And then the bass drops or rises or whatever, and the tension snaps like a rubber band. And it's just unbelievably powerful, the way that Walton writes it. But to get a performance like that is very difficult. It requires a great deal of virtuosity. The string parts are ferociously difficult. All that ostinato stuff, string players hate to do it, and they have to do it hard. Just at the end there, so the strings are fortissimoing, yum, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. That's all they're doing. They don't have the tune, but they have to play it with this percussive menace that very few orchestras manage to do. And it's a real problem in the history of this piece on recordings, starting with Walton himself, who's very interesting and worth hearing for the conception, for the general shape of the piece and the pace and the tempo. But it's a mono recording. But make sure it's a mono recording. It has an asterisk with an asterisk. Yes, it is a mono recording. So the sound is not fabulous. It never was. And the orchestra was not great at that time. And they just didn't have the balls to pull it off. And that's going to be the thing we're going to discuss when we listen to all these recordings. But first, I have to talk to you about the worst ever Walton one. It's in the Walton edition. Now, you would think that the Walton edition would include Walton's performance of the First Symphony, but it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because Walton's version wasn't so great. So what did EMI do? They found one that was even worse. That took some doing. They put in high tink. Ugh, oh boy, is that bad. It is the dullest, slowest, heaviest, most mealy-mouthed, miserable performance of the First Symphony you will ever hear in your entire existence on this mortal orb. I kid you not. Needless to say, the gramophone people were full of praise for the performance's thoughtfulness and substance, as if only high tink could somehow imbue the music with a profundity by being slow and boring that it otherwise never had. That we didn't know the music could achieve. It is such hogwash. I mean, it's just such nonsense. It's simply slow and dull, and that's the end of it. So forget it. Stay away from it like death. And now I need to talk to you about three performances. I don't have the discs here with me. They're either over in my secondary overflow section, or I have them on my phone or whatever, but we'll talk to them. The first is the Naxos with Paul Daniel and the English Northern Philharmonia. It's a very good performance, but again, the orchestra is just second rate. And this music requires an orchestra that is top-notch, first-rate, all the way. And you're just going to hear me say this over and over again. If the orchestra isn't absolutely superlative, then there's almost no point in doing it. I mean, Daniel's is a good version, but it's just not great. The next is Charles Mackerras. Charles Mackerras did it on EMI with the second. The two recordings were very, very different sonically. The second sounded great. The first was a little mushy. The interpretation is spot on. Absolutely spot on. It's just terrific. But again, it doesn't have that hard-hitting power that you want to hear. And I think it's really a function of the engineering more than anything else, because when you listen to the two recordings, they're done at different times. One sounds great, one just sounds sort of, So it's really a shame. It's a tragedy, really, because Mackerras would have been great under better technical circumstances, you know what I mean? But the third is one really worth considering, and that's Leonard Slatkin with the Philharmonia. That was one of it was in fact the first batch of releases on Virgin Classics, and it is a smoker. It is sensational. It has all the necessary ferocity, all of the anger, the violence, and the only thing it's missing is tam-tam in the finale. Enough tam-tam. The finale is, embodies, it's a toccata basically. It has a prelude, then a fugue in the middle, and then this huge coda. And the coda finally brings in the full percussion section, which is two sets of timpani with a lot of fun. The part's a lot of fun. You're waiting, and all of a sudden, it goes, crash, boom, do, 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 bada, 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 bum. It's great. And you have cymbals, and then tam-tam. Crash, psh, crash, psh, like this. That's the way they go through the whole coda when they play. I mean, they don't play through the whole coda. And they have to be balanced equally. And they never are. They really never are. I've stopped hoping. I really have. Why conductors cannot make these two players equalize their sound. Maybe it needs a separate rehearsal. It just needs some attention. And so that you get da, da, crash. It's so easy. But alas, it almost never happens. All right. So Slatkin's is a fabulous performance, though. I'm not going to complain about what everyone basically doesn't do as well as they should. It's a sensational performance. If you can still get it, definitely grab it, because it is absolutely on a par with the best performances out there. So now let's talk about a few others. I have like 4 or 5 or 6, a few here. Gibson. Now, again, Gibson is a great Sibelius conductor. He's a great Walton conductor. The interpretation is right, the pacing is right, the intensity is right. The orchestra just isn't quite up to it. At that point, the Scottish National Orchestra is not the Royal Scottish National yet. It hadn't achieved royalty, either technically or in terms of its name. And also the bass trombone, for some reason, is over mic'd. They have one hell of a bass trombone player in that orchestra. Listen to Yarvy's Alpine Symphony. But it just, again, it doesn't have the playing, especially in the strings. They have to have body and weight and the ability to play like hammers in this music. The scherzo too, presto con malizia, with malice, and it all depends on the strings, and you just, oh well. All right, so moving right along, we have surprisingly fine performance from Gibson and Thomson in the London Philharmonic. This has really never gotten a lot of attention. It's a lot better than you think, than people might have led you to believe. It's a little bit on the slow side. Remember, Thomson made those sort of slow, heavy, bloated Elgar recordings for Chandos? This isn't like that. It really isn't. Could you imagine doing that to Walton's first symphony? But it's a very, very solid, exciting, well-played performance, and I enjoy it. I enjoy hearing it, whenever I pick it up. It's very good. However, there are two recordings that are vying for first place, both of them absolutely superb. The first, Andrew Litton with the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra. This got wrapped up and stuck in a Walton box, and I'm not sure where it is now, but it is spectacular. It has the intensity of Slatkin, that hard-hitting, punishing sonority in the first two movements in the finale, a gorgeous, melancholy, slow movement. It's a thrilling performance from beginning to end, and it's very well recorded. So you've got the sonic impact that the piece should have too. However, the second, you know it, where we're going. The famous one was Andre Previn with the London Symphony Orchestra. This was sort of the performance that made even English people look up and go, whoa, wow, holy crap, what a piece, because it had never been played with this intensity, this ferocity, this attention to detail, textural transparency. I don't know. You may like Litton a little better just for the sonics, and it's even sharper, and Slatkin too. They're both a little sharper rhythmically than Previn, but this is just unbeatable. And no one had heard the London Symphony play a piece of this sort of just sheer difficulty with so much passion and security, and it was a new thing when this thing came out, trust me, and it still is. It has held up. It has withstood the test of time. Even though gramophone likes it, what they say is all's not false that's taught in the public schools. And the recommendation of this recording, it's just a no-brainer. You know what I mean? What really freaks me out about the whole thing is how anybody, having recommended Previn, could later go on to say that Haitink had anything going for it. I mean, you simply can't like both. You can't, because it's not like you're dealing with equivalents here. One is, Apollonian and one is Dionysian. There's nothing like that in this symphony. It's all Dionysian. And if it isn't insane and crazy and thrillingly exciting and physical, then there's no point in listening to it. And there's nothing else to be done for it. Nothing. Zero. Zippo. Forget it. Just forget it. So if you're going to get one, I would get Slatkin, possibly, Litton, or Previn, and preferably all three. Those are the performances that are going to give you the best sense of what Walton 1 is all about. But I still have to say, I still think in my heart and in my mind and looking at the critical edition here, the score, it still seems to me that there's room for an astonishingly great Walton 1. Not just because of the percussion in the finale, one that just somehow sustains the level of tension all the way through the symphony till the very last note. These performances do it very well. They do it very well. But I still think it could be done better. And it's one of those pieces where I'm still waiting for that performance where you just sit back and say, yeah, that's it. That's the way it's got to go. And until that happens, we just have to keep listening. Thank you so much for joining me.